Hello everybody, it's Verda here, and I hope you don't mind the dark room. It's quite late and I'm not really feeling like having a ton of light on right now, but we're going to be benchmarking the RTX 3060 Ti today in Path of Exiles, which is a dinosaur survival kind of game. I'm sure if you're here, you know what game it is. But yeah, we're going to be pairing it up with the Ryzen 7 7800X 3D with 32GB of DDR5 6000MHz RAM. I have the latest Nvidia drivers, as you can see. And yeah, with that, let's jump on in and see what this is like here. So to get us started here in Path of Titans, we're playing at 1080p, full screen resolution. I have everything set to Epic, which is pretty much the highest preset. Now, there is one preset higher than this, Cinematic. But when you change the settings to Cinematic, you get a lot of pop-up saying, do not play the game in these settings. It's mainly for like screenshots and stuff. I'm sure you can play with those settings, but it's probably a lot less stable. I'm using TSR to start with the AA setting. We may change this because I believe this used to be really intensive in this game, but I haven't played the game in over a year, maybe nearly 2 years now, so it has been a while. So, and I have restarted the game. This little pop-up here stays here regardless. So yeah, with that, let's jump in and see what it's like. What should we pick? We'll just go with this, the Concavenator. Sure. I'm just on the normal servers on Panjura, I believe it is the map. So I don't remember how to play this game, guys, so do bear with me. It's been about 2 years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. I'm not too sure. Let's reset our 1% lows here. So I do want to quickly say that I know this game gets really intensive if there's a ton of dinosaurs around, because I used to play a lot of deathmatch servers, and if you ended up with 20, 30, maybe 40 dinosaurs, I can't remember exactly what the limit was on the servers. It was about 40, but if you had about 40 dinosaurs in one area, your FPS did drop quite a bit, but that's not usually going to happen in this game for the most part. And this game's anti-cheat is blocking me from checking how much VRAM the game is actually using. So if you probably noticed, it says VRAM A and VRAM U. So VRAM A is how much VRAM is currently being allocated, and VRAM U is actually how much VRAM is currently being used by the game. Like actually being used, not just allocated. But the anti-cheat in this game clearly blocks that from allowing us to hook onto that. Basically, it's not allowing my benchmarking software to hook onto that statistic or that those stats, unfortunately. So we're just gonna have to work with the allocated VRAM, which you can see is just at 3.1 gigs. So you can get away with playing this game with very, very little VRAM, in all honesty. If you got a 3 gig card, you're probably going to struggle more with actual performance than VRAM issues or having VRAM issues. So yeah, it's good to see VRAM not a problem in this game. But yeah, I don't know what's going on with my dinosaur. I've got some really weird... My skin is moving, essentially. Like, there's some really weird textures going on here. Do you see this? This didn't used to be a thing, if I remember correct, a year or two ago when I played. But my dinosaur's skin is absolutely moving. There is no doubt about that. The textures on my skin, when I walk... There's something funky going on there. Don't know what that's about. It's not game breaking by any means, but it's very distracting because your dinosaur is a pretty big part of your screen. And this is a small dinosaur too, so it's, you know, the bigger dinosaurs do end up taking quite a big portion of your screen. So pretty jarring bug, to be honest. I mean, if you're in the shadows, you can't see it as much, but... And for actual RAM usage as well, this game is using very little RAM. I remember this game being very intensive, but I guess I was probably playing with a 1060 or something when I played this. That's probably why I found this game very intensive. It's running completely fine here at 1080p epic settings. So let's take a drink and we'll swap it over to 1440. All right, guys, so we're at 1440p now. Epic settings with TSR. And at epic 1440p, we're having a few issues here. VRAM jumped up by half a gig. So quite a big jump up there in VRAM usage, but still enough for the 8 gigs that we have, of course. But we are struggling for actual performance from the GPU. So the VRAM, not an issue. Just the actual performance, though, is... We're at like 40s, 50s, which, you know, some people can probably play like this. I'm sure there's plenty of people who play this kind of game, or the Isle, or something similar like this at this FPS. But for me personally, I wouldn't want to play like this. You know, it is a fighting game, so you want to have pretty good FPS to actually be able to fight properly. But then you've got to contend with hitboxes and server lag. Am I right, guys? Just kidding, it's not the Isle. But yeah, it's no shade on the Isle, by the way. All these dino games have the similar issues with everything. They're all pretty similar, to be honest, in what issues they have with performance and hitboxes and everything. But even though our FPS has dropped quite a bit, you probably noticed this game is very smooth. There's no random spiking or anything like that. It's low FPS, but it's very consistent, which makes it a hell of a lot more enjoyable. Some games you'll have decent FPS, but they spike a lot, you know, like Fortnite and stuff. And that's arguably more annoying than having lower FPS, because that's more annoying to have, I think, because it's a big pause in your gameplay, so it's really annoying. This area is clearly more intensive because we're actually at low 40s in this place, so this is definitely more intensive here. And I do want to quickly check if the TSR is actually as intensive as I remember it being. So like we're at mid 40s, because yeah, TSR was really intensive in this game from what I remember. And so I've just changed it to TAA. We shouldn't have to restart the game to apply that setting, basically. So we're still at Epic settings 1440p, but we're playing with TAA now. And we actually jumped up. We literally just got like 10-15 FPS going to TAA from TSR. So yeah, I'm gonna reset my FPS here. So TSR is still very intensive in this game. Going from TSR to TAA. I know a lot of people don't like TAA because it makes the games potentially blurry. For some games, it makes them a lot blurrier and stuff, but it's up to you if you'd rather lower your settings or just play with TAA over TSR. I would probably just play with TAA instead of TSR, just to get this FPS rather than lowering some graphical settings. Yeah, just lowering the TAA has actually gave us quite a decent FPS jump. We've just increased our FPS by about 10 to 20, depending on where we are. It's hard to say exactly, but we're at about the 60 FPS range, which is feeling pretty good here, in all honesty. It's not feeling bad. No, it doesn't feel bad at all. Let's try TAA with the 1080p resolution instead. Okay, so we're back at 1080p at Epic settings, but we have TAA instead. So let's see how this runs. 80s, we're at 80 FPS here. What were we at with TSR? Was it like 75? So yeah, we gained like 10-20 FPS depending on where we are, where we're looking. But I think it might actually be coming to night here. It looks like it's turning to night, which is not good because we're not going to be able to see the graphical differences here between the presets, which is not great. But in terms of the game, personally for me, I've always played games with TAA, to be honest. For me, I don't really notice it that much. Maybe for you guys, it's very jarring. But for me, since I've played for years and years with TAA, it's just something that I guess I've gotten used to, how it makes games look. So I'm very accustomed to it. Wow, we're actually getting 100 frames here. That's kind of insane. We are playing at pretty much maximum settings. Maybe the cinematic settings actually makes it so the VRAM usage spikes up an insane amount. So we will still try cinematic, because I was expecting Epic to be a little bit more intensive, so we'll try the cinematic settings, because it seems like this is completely fine here. So let's quickly do that before it actually gets to night. All right, guys, so I've restarted my game. We're back at 1080p using cinematic settings with TSR on the AA option. Let's jump in real quick and see what this is like here. I got a bunch of warnings telling me don't play the game like this, so we'll see. You probably shouldn't play on cinematic settings, but we'll have a look. And here we are, 1080p cinematic settings with TSR, and the game is obviously not playable. So the devs are not lying. Do not play like this. We have lost so much performance here, guys. It is actually insane. So yeah, we're jumping up now. We're getting like 50, 60 FPS, but probably shouldn't play like this. The VRAM usage, we're at 4 gigs allocated to the game right now, which is still, it's only like half the RAM, or sorry, half the VRAM that the 3060 Ti has. So it's still fine. I was actually expecting it to jump up a lot more than that, considering it was telling me how much VRAM the game would use on cinematic. Now, it also said it would use a hell of a lot more RAM, but it doesn't look like that's the case. We're at 10 gigs of RAM usage here, so I'm pretty sure it's pretty much the same what we were getting before. So it doesn't seem to use more RAM, at least not for me, not yet. But FPS has definitely tanked quite a considerable amount. We're not going to try this at 1440p because clearly it's not possible to play 1080p like this. So you can kind of guess it's not going to work at 1440p. Not guess, but you know it's not going to. So yeah, VRAM usage is still increasing a little bit. That's fine, but the FPS itself is pretty much unplayable for a game like this. Let's try TAA instead and see what kind of FPS we get compared to TSR. So yeah, we've turned TAA on 1080p at cinematic settings. So let's see the difference from TSR. So if I just look here, we're at 63 FPS. Let's turn TAA back on. You don't need to restart the game for TAA, but yeah, you can see how intensive TAA, or how intensive TSR is, sorry. yeah, going from 63 to 77 FPS in the exact same spot, so more than 20% there. You can actually play it cinematic, it would seem. Just use TAA and not... I mean, you can still use TSR, actually, by the looks of it. What just happened? Like, I'm genuinely confused. How did we just get a load of FPS? I only changed the AA. It looks like you can play it cinematic then, which you don't need to restart the game for. Let's put TSR back on. Yeah, it's still fine with TSR. Cinematic settings, completely fine. But let's change it to 1440p because clearly it might be playable. All right, so at 1440p TSR cinematic settings, is this going to be playable here? I've actually noticed something really weird here with the textures. If you look at the edge of this bush that I'm currently in, look at the leaves. I don't really know how to show you, but look at the leaves on the top. Do you see how they're doing, like, they've got some really weird shading issues? And this is with TSR on. It could be bugging it out, switching between TSR and TAA, but I've never known a game to require a restart to change the AA setting. It usually never requires a change for that, so I can't imagine it does. It must just be some sort of shading bug or something in the game currently. I mean, there's other bugs as well, like my skin is moving on my... Like, my textures on my skin is moving when I move, which is clearly a bug. There's no way that's supposed to be like that. But yeah, 1440p with cinematic settings is not going to be playable here, guys. I wouldn't say. 1080p was. We're at 4.5 gigs of VRAM usage, so it's still completely fine there. And our actual RAM usage has not moved from 10 gigs the entire time we've been benchmarking this. So it looks like it's going to take about 10 gigs to run this game, pretty much. Let's go ahead and try TAA with it. Don't break my legs. I don't even know if leg breaking is a thing in this game, but let's go ahead and try TAA and see how that is. Right, so 1440p TAA cinematic settings. Let's see how this runs compared to TSR. All right, so it appears here with TAA we're getting about 5 to 10 FPS more depending on where we are. So that is a jump up of, you know, 10-20% FPS again, which is no joke, a pretty good increase in FPS. I knew TSR was very intensive, especially in this title. It's still not within the FPS range that I would want for this game like this, especially when you've got a GPU that can just, you know, you can lower the settings a little bit and just guarantee that you're going to get plus 60 all the time or 75 plus all the time at 1440p with good settings still. Because cinematic, like, I can't really see the difference. Yes, the weather is different. The weather is like way duller right now. We've got like a misty fog overcast right now, so well, you can't compare the graphics necessarily because the weather's not the same. But in terms of like textures and stuff, it looks identical to Epic for me personally. VRAM has increased quite a bit, so clearly it's doing something. But I don't really see it. And when you're actually playing, you probably won't tell the difference between Epic and Cinematic most likely. So it's just not worth it. If you do want to play at these settings, you're going to get about 50 or 55 FPS. It will fluctuate a lot depending on where you are. And if there's a lot of dinosaurs in the area, it's probably going to decrease quite a bit more. Something I'm finding really bizarre right now is I've been playing for like half an hour, nearly an hour now, and I've not come across a single player. But there's not much else to say on here. I don't want to test any lower than the Epic settings because realistically, there's no need. At 1080p and 1440p, completely fine FPS to play this game. And do take my word for it, if you play at lower settings, like low settings or whatever, you can literally double, nearly triple your FPS, probably more. I used to play this game with the 1060, so I kind of know what the low settings are like, and you do get a considerable FPS increase. But there's no need for it on a 3060 Ti here in the game. So, yep, that's going to do it for today. Hopefully you found some use out of this video. It's a very niche game, to be honest, so I was kind of like hesitant to benchmark this, because it's probably not going to do so well, this video, since the game is quite niche. If you found any use out of this video, please go ahead and leave me a like. It encourages me to actually make more niche kinds of videos like this that statistically don't do as well on YouTube. And subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment if you want to see something else or you got a question. And yeah, I've been Verda. Take care of yourselves. Until next time, goodbye for now. So to get us started inside of Path of Titans, we're playing at 1080p. I've got the game in full screen mode. You can see I've got the So to get us started here in Path of oh my god, seriously?